Hey everybody. So I'm thinking a lot about late season food sources today, and thought I'd do a little comparison just of beans versus corn. Now I'm going to say off the bat that beans are one of my favorite food sources for the hunting season, because you get the leaves during the summer, you get the pods during the hunting season. They can be a late season food source into the late season and post season. And one of the best things about beans is you can overseed into them either rye or in some cases brassicas, so you can actually get a good food plot that lasts through the whole hunting season. I mean, as those leaves are yellowing down and stalks are starting to dry up, then that cereal grain or those brassicas will take off, so you have a good green food source as you're waiting for those pods to get attractive to the deer again. So beans are one of my favorite food plots, so I'm always going to keep planting beans. But today I'm just thinking strictly in terms of a late season food plot, as in towards the end of the hunting season into the postseason. What's going to feed deer throughout the winter? So here's what I got for beans. I got about an acre of beans right here versus maybe an acre to an acre and a half of corn over here. So here's what the beans look like right now. Let's see, I don't even know what the date is today. I think it's like the 22nd of January, somewhere around there. So here's what the beans look like right now. I mean, they are absolutely pick clean. I would say that we probably have maybe 3 acres of beans this year. Now that might be overshooting a little bit. 2 to 2.5 acres of beans this year as compared to 3.5 or so acres of corn. But these didn't last very long. The deer hammered them pretty hard starting probably early to mid-November. And I would say that there was still beans on here through maybe the end of the December. So they actually did last through most of the hunting season, because we have tons of food here. But then after that, they cleaned them up pretty well. So let's look at the corn. Got a beautiful evening here. I think it's about 3 degrees today, a little cooler than normal. Well, actually, that's normal temps for this year, but a little cooler than it's been this winter because it's been a super mild winter. But here's the corn. So you can see they're hitting it very hard. I mean, there's not a ton of cobs on these outside rows, but once I start getting in to the middle, we got to go a few rows in. Once I start getting into the middle, I'm going to start finding cobs. Here we go. There you go. Cob there. Cob there. Cob there. So I still have food for the deer with the corn. Now, we are a winter yarding ground. Because of all the work I've been doing, we have a ton of deer that yard on us, averaging probably 100 to 200 deer a winter. But I have a lot of supplemental feed in the form of woody browse, which takes some of the browse pressure off these plots. But when you compare corn to beans overall, for a winter food source or late season food source, the corn always outlasts the beans. I think one of the key reasons for that is because when you look at the corn, just in the total forage this time of year, our corn, the renter says our corn averages probably 150 bushels an acre, whereas the beans are going to be about 40 to 50 bushels an acre, just in the beans themselves. So, I mean, that's 3 times the available forage for late season. Now, of course, the beans in summer, you got the leaves, which adds a lot of forage value to them, and it's a longer year-round food source. But I'm just looking at late season in this comparison. So for right now, this has a lot more food available than the beans would, so therefore it's going to last longer. The other thing I like about corn is that it stays above the snow. So this year it's been a mild winter. We've had 5 to 6 inches of snow, probably total, maybe a little more by now. But normally we'd have 2 to 3 feet. And the nice thing is that this corn will stay above that snow, so the deer don't have to use energy pawing down for it, whereas the beans will cover up with snow on a normal year. So there's less energy spent trying to get the corn than there is the beans. Now, a huge positive with beans, it is more nutritious for the deer. If you look at like just the nutrition of corn versus beans, beans has something like 3 times the protein as corn. It's going to beat corn every time when you look at nutrition. Of course, that varies when you look at different varieties of corn and beans, but kind of as a rule of thumb, there's 3 times the protein, and there's other nutritional benefits to beans. But corn still provides deer with energy. It's still a good late season food source. The deer are in here heavy. We want to have that attraction on our property even after the season. We love shed hunting. And when you have this on your property, you're going to find sheds. It's going to feed deer. And the fact is in the winter, there is not an abundance of food. Really, deer just need food to get them through. It's not a time where they're going to be thriving. We just need them to stay healthy enough to get through the winter, and we need them to keep those energy levels up, and that's what corn does. Listen to a good kind of blog post by John O'Brien today. He was talking about corn, and he was saying that the more modern egg corns that are used have a really hard seed to them, which can be tough for the deer to digest. But there are different varieties of corn. I think one's called Nutricorn, that actually do have a softer shell to them and are easier for the deer to digest. They're commonly used as like silo corn by farmers, but that's something that you can look at if you're wanting something that the deer can digest easier, because that's another negative to corn, is it's just really tough to digest. But it is a good food source for this time of year. You can see I plowed a path through here, and the deer clearly like when I did that with the tracks. But there's a lot of benefits to corn. It's a nice way to kind of supplementally feed deer. If you're just putting corn piles out, of course you want to do that, start well before the winter, because if you introduce corn in January, February, you can actually kill deer by doing that, because it messes with their gut, and their gut needs to be used to that corn. But very good food source for the winter. If you have the ability to plant it. If you don't have the ability and you need to do beans, you just need to do a heck of a lot of them. We just don't have the Foodplot acres to put enough beans in to help feed the deer in the winter. So that's why we supplement some with corn. But as a whole, I'll still take beans over corn if I'm looking at a year-round food source, but strictly looking at the winter, nice to have some corn, because it definitely helps get the deer through. And just one other thing, the corn is great, but I definitely complement the corn by all the work I do in the timber to get that woody browse. So they might not get the best nutrition out of the corn, but I know they're getting good nutrition out of all the natural forage I'm putting down on the ground in the timber, in the form of just young woody regeneration, shrub plantings, hinge cut trees. They can browse on the buds and the tips. Lots of natural forage, stump sprouts. If you know anything about mineral stumps, or when you flush cut a tree and you get those mineral stumps, they're super dense in nutrients, minerals. So I complement all this that I plant with the forage that I got going on in the timber. So there it is. That's my little comparison, corn versus beans. I love beans, but I'm always going to plant some corn for the late season here, just to help the deer get through. All right, you all take care. God bless.